Hi, my name is Danica and today I have my first quarterly update of my Year of Reading in Color project. In the beginning of 2015, I decided that this year I was going to read all authors of color. I just wanted to give an update on how that project's going and what I'm thinking about it. I wanted to briefly reiterate why I'm doing this project and why I track the race of the authors of the books that I read and the queer content. It's pretty simple. Basically, in my ideal world, the publishing industry would roughly reflect reality in the people and the authors that it represents. I don't feel like that's a really radical thing to say. So for me, my reading goals are to do what I can as an individual to push the publishing industry further in that direction. So for me, that means seeking out authors and experiences that are underrepresented in the publishing industry and reading and promoting those. Basically, I'm trying to be conscious of my reading in order to sort of manually counteract the sexism, racism, cissexism, ableism, and heterosexism of the publishing industry. I'm still only reading books that I am interested in reading, but they're also by underrepresented voices. I use statistics because even though they're flawed, they give me a sense of my progress. It's something for me to track. It's something for me to be able to check and make sure that I'm actually sticking to these goals. A vague goal of reading more diversely without any way to define that or to measure whether I'm succeeding doesn't seem useful for me. So this project was a chance for me to actively prioritize authors of color in my reading life, and I still feel like that was a worthwhile goal for me. So on to how the project is going. In 2015 so far, I've read 24 books, and 22 of them were by authors of color. The only two exceptions were for paid reviews for the library, which is going exactly according to plan. That was part of my stipulations in my original goal. My other condition was that I still wanted to maintain 50% books about queer women, so if I had defined that as books that I reviewed at the library, then I'm at I think exactly 50%, so that's still going really well. But mostly I wanted to talk about just the general experience of this project. When I first started it, I was really excited, but I was also nervous that it was going to be a challenge. Specifically, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to find enough books by authors of color about queer women. I found enough to kind of just barely do this year with the 50%, but now that I've been doing it for a while, that seems like a really silly concern. Right now I have a list of about 120 books about queer women by authors of color, and I'm just going to be picking up more as I go on. That list is always going to grow, as the rest of my TBR is always going to grow. In fact, that's been my biggest takeaway of the project so far, is that it's been really easy. Like, yes, there was some work that went into originally kind of building some lists and finding more diverse sources of books, but after that it follows pretty easily. Basically, once you make reading diversely or reading inclusively a priority in your life, then you just notice more and more diverse books that you want to read. You also start to notice more sources of diverse books, more booktubers that are also reading diversely, and more book bloggers that make it a priority and things like that. At this point in the project, my concern has switched from running out of books to read to worrying about finishing this year without even reading the books I was most excited about. Still haven't read any Audre Lorde, though that is next up. I'm about to pick it up from the library. I haven't read Brown Girl Dreaming, I haven't read Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe or Redefining Realness. Lots of books that I'm really excited about, but there are just so many books that I'm excited about that I've kind of forgotten my main ones that I started this year thinking about, so I want to make sure that I get to those as well, but basically there's just an abundance of choice. I also haven't felt restricted by this project. I can still read any topic that I'm interested in, any genre. The only specific book that I've been craving that I haven't been able to read because of this project is the new Veronica Mars book, which is totally just like a junk food book, but I'm a little bit addicted to Veronica Mars, so not a surprise. One sort of trend that I've noticed with my reading this year is that it seems to skew more heavy and dark than I usually would. And it's made me notice that most of the authors of color that are most celebrated and promoted are also quite heavy books. And it reminds me of how the most celebrated queer books and movies are tragedies and about kind of martyrs for the cause. And I think that says something about our society, but I can't quite articulate what that is right now. One other part of this project is that it's been encouraging me to get over my fear of talking about books by people of color and about people of color. I feel really clumsy talking about racism, and I worry about saying things incorrectly or being revealed as uninformed, but that's a really silly reason to contribute to the erasure of people of color in the media. And basically I'm just gonna have to suck it up and accept that I'm gonna be uncomfortable and I'm gonna miss things and I'm gonna get things wrong, and that's not a big deal. It's funny because doing the Lesbury and just having an interest in queer books, I read a lot of book reviews and watch booktube videos about queer books that are not by queer people, and very often you can tell the discomfort and that they feel like they don't know what they're talking about, and things are kind of worded in a way that you wouldn't if you were queer. But, I mean, it's fine, and you'll get there. Basically, I'd rather be promoting fantastic books by people of color and also tripping over my own tongue rather than seeming eloquent and saying nothing of value. At this 4-month mark, I'm feeling really good about this project. I've still got tons of books that I'm really excited about reading, and I now know that transitioning to having about 50% authors of color in the future should be really easy. Rincey at Rincey Reads said something similar in her Q1 reading update about just being mindful and conscious of the books that you're picking up. Basically, once you start actively paying attention, change follows pretty naturally from there. So that's how my year of reading in color is going. I'm really enjoying it. Let me know if you're doing anything similar. If you're thinking of starting a similar project about reading more inclusively, I highly recommend it. And thank you for watching. Bye!